At exactly 11:52 p.m., Serena Vaughn realized her entire life had been quietly rewritten without her permission. The city outside her 42nd floor office glowed with confidence. Glass towers, moving traffic, money flowing somewhere else. Inside, her screen told a different story. Numbers pulsed red. Accounts branched into unfamiliar pathways. Transactions carried her authorization, her name, her digital imprint, yet she had never approved a single one. Someone hadn't stolen from the company. They had made her the thief. Serena stood frozen, heels abandoned beside her desk, silk blazer draped over a chair like it belonged to someone who still mattered. She refreshed the ledger again. And again, the system didn't change, because it didn't need to. The setup was perfect, manufactured delays, international shells, jurisdictions chosen like chess moves. Whoever built this hadn't rushed. They'd waited patiently for the exact moment when exposure would hurt the most. Her phone buzzed, a board member, then another, then silence. That silence told her everything. By morning, she wouldn't be a CEO, she'd be a headline. Serena sank into her chair, heart hammering, mind racing through every person who had access. Assistants, executives, advisors who smiled too easily, men who'd watched her inherit power they believed should have been theirs. And then she remembered a name she hadn't spoken in years, Daniel Cross. The forensic analyst no one could buy, the man firms quietly warned each other about, the one who left prestige behind and never explained why. At 12:07 a.m., Serena dialed the number she'd saved but never thought she'd use. It rang twice. "Talk," a calm voice answered, no greeting, no warmth. "My name is Serena Vaughn," she said, "and someone is about to destroy me." A pause, breathing on the other end, measured, controlled. "You have 5 minutes." That was how it began. The townhouse sat on a narrow street where time moved slower than the rest of the city. No cameras. No security desk, just brick darkened by decades and a door scarred by use, not neglect. Serena hesitated before knocking. She'd worn a coat worth more than most people's rent, then felt ridiculous for it. The door opened. Daniel Cross looked exactly like someone who owed the world nothing. Plain sweater, reading glasses, stillness that felt heavier than anger. "You're early," he said. "You said come now." "I said come prepared." She stepped inside anyway. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. Books lined the walls, not decorative, not curated, labeled, studied, used. A child's drawing hung above the fireplace, 2 stick figures holding hands beneath a crooked sun. Daniel noticed her eyes linger. "Sit," he said. No offer of water, no courtesy. She explained everything. The fraud, the signatures, the clock ticking toward federal warrants. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he leaned forward, fingers tapping once against her documents. "You didn't come to ask if you're innocent," he said. "You came because you already know you're expendable." The truth of it landed harder than the accusation ever could. A soft sound came from the hallway. A young girl, maybe 8, stood watching them, pajama sleeves too long for her arms. "Dad," she asked. "Is she in trouble?" Daniel's voice softened, just barely. "Go back to bed." The girl looked at Serena once more, curious, observant, then disappeared. Daniel exhaled. "You have 48 hours, he said, "and people who build traps like this don't miss twice." He stood. "If you want my help," he added, "understand this, I don't save reputations, I expose systems." Serena swallowed. "I don't care about saving my image," she said. "I care about surviving the truth." Daniel studied her finally. "We'll see," he said. "Come back tomorrow, and Serena—" "Yes, lose the armor, it makes you visible. If this story already has you hooked, subscribe, like, and comment truth, because what comes next will change everything." Serena didn't know it yet, but agreeing to come back would cost her far more than her career. It would cost her the illusion of who she thought she was. Serena didn't sleep. Not because she was afraid, fear had already burned itself out, but because every quiet moment invited memories she had spent years outrunning. Boardrooms, applause, her father's voice telling her she had been chosen to lead. Power had always felt permanent, now it felt conditional. At 8:41 p.m., she stood in front of her penthouse mirror, holding the paper bag Daniel had sent by courier. No note, no explanation, just clothes folded with practical indifference. A gray hoodie. Black jeans, scuffed sneakers, nothing memorable, nothing expensive, nothing her. She changed slowly, peeling away layers that once made strangers listen before she spoke. Without makeup, without jewelry, her reflection looked unfinished. Ordinary, someone people wouldn't remember 5 minutes after passing on the street. That realization unsettled her more than the fraud ever had. Her phone buzzed, one final alert from a news app. Vaughn Global under federal review, sources say CEO implicated. She turned the phone off and left it on the kitchen counter. Daniel had been clear, they're already tracking it. The service entrance on Mercer Street was a door Serena had never noticed before, despite walking past it for years. No signage, No glass, just metal scarred by use and neglect. Daniel waited there, already dressed like the background of the city. Neutral, forgettable, dangerous only if underestimated. "You're late," he said, "by 3 minutes." "Then move." They slipped inside as a delivery truck rumbled away, swallowed by city noise. The hallway smelled like oil and concrete. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Daniel walked ahead without looking back. "Rule 1, he said quietly, "stay close. Rule 2, don't speak unless I ask you something." Serena nodded. The freight elevator groaned as it descended, each floor marked by a dull clang. Her chest tightened. She had ridden private elevators her entire career, silent, seamless, obedient. This one felt alive, unhappy. "You're tense," Daniel said. "That's how people notice you. I'm in my own building. Not tonight." Basement level 2 opened into a corridor she'd never known existed. Pipes ran along the ceiling. The air was cold, stale, forgotten. Daniel swiped a card at a heavy door. Green light. Inside, rows of servers hummed softly, millions of dollars of data breathing in unison. This was the heart of her empire, hidden beneath marble floors and executive suites. Daniel moved with precision, fingers dancing across a terminal. Serena watched numbers scroll past, meaningless to her now. "Here," he said finally, "October 3rd, 2:17 a.m. That wasn't me." "I know." He pulled up another file. "Your digital signature was cloned, clean, elegant. Whoever did this expected scrutiny and built the system to survive it." Serena's stomach dropped. "So it was planned?" "Yes." Footsteps echoed outside. Daniel froze. He killed the screen instantly and pulled Serena behind a rack of servers, his body blocking her from view. They stood there, silent. Serena's heart thundered in her ears. For the first time in her life, she wasn't protected by authority, money, or recognition. She was invisible and strangely alive. The footsteps passed, a laugh, then silence. Daniel exhaled. "We go." Now they retraced their path, slipping back into the night like they'd never existed. Outside, Serena gulped cold air. "What happens next?" she asked. Daniel looked at her, eyes unreadable. "Now," he said, "you wait. And you decide who you're willing to become when everything familiar is taken away." She nodded, though she wasn't sure she understood. As he turned to leave, Daniel paused. "They didn't frame you because you're weak," he said. "They framed you because you stopped being predictable." He disappeared into the street. Serena stood alone, hoodie pulled tight, realizing the most dangerous part wasn't losing her power. It was learning how much of her identity had depended on it. By morning, Serena would learn that waiting was the most brutal test of all, and that the people closest to her were already choosing sides. Waiting changed Serena Vaughn in ways success never had. By the second day, the city felt louder without her permission to command it. News anchors said her name with practiced concern. Analysts speculated with rehearsed certainty. Former allies spoke carefully, as if distance itself were evidence. She watched it all from her penthouse couch, hoodie pulled tight, coffee growing cold in her hands. Daniel hadn't called. That worried her more than the headlines. At 10:18 a.m., her executive assistant finally reached out, not by phone, but by email. No greeting, no warmth. Per board direction, please cease all internal communications effective immediately. That single line confirmed what Serena already knew. They had decided. Power didn't disappear loudly. It evaporated quietly, through compliance, through silence, through people choosing safety over truth. Her doorbell rang just after noon. Security. 2 men in neutral suits stood politely in the hallway, badges visible but unthreatening. "Miss Vaughn," one said, "we're here to escort you for a scheduled interview." "I wasn't notified. That decision was made above us." She didn't argue. She grabbed her coat, the expensive one this time. Armor still mattered in certain rooms. The interview room smelled like recycled air and restraint. The investigator across from her spoke gently, as if kindness could soften inevitability. "Your signature appears on every transaction," he said. "Your access credentials were used repeatedly. They were compromised. Can you prove that?" "Not yet." He nodded, sympathetic but unconvinced. "These cases tend to resolve themselves," he said. "People cooperate. Responsibility becomes clear." Serena understood the message. Someone needed to fall, and systems preferred familiar sacrifices. She left 2 hours later without charges, but without reassurance. When she returned home, her building access had been downgraded. The elevator bypassed executive floors entirely, forcing her to walk stairs she had never used. Invisible again. Her phone buzzed for the first time in days. "Daniel, come now." "Bring nothing." The townhouse felt different this time, less guarded, more exposed. Papers covered every surface. Screens glowed softly in the dim light. Daniel stood at the table, jaw tight. "They're accelerating," he said. "Your CFO moved money again last night." "That's impossible. Everything's frozen." "Not everything." He turned the screen toward her, transactions routed through a nonprofit subsidiary Serena barely remembered approving. That account was created under your father's leadership, Daniel said. Legacy structures are perfect hiding places. Serena felt sick. So he's still framing me. No, Daniel said quietly. He's preparing to survive you. A small voice came from the hallway. Dad! The girl from before Maya stood watching them, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one missing eye. You said you'd stop working early, she said. Daniel knelt instantly. 5 minutes. Maya looked at Serena. She's sad. Serena swallowed. Yes, Daniel said, she is. Maya nodded as if that explained everything, then disappeared back into the hallway. Daniel stood slowly. That's why this ends, he said. Not for revenge for her. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were names, dates, patterns spanning years. This isn't just about you, he continued. Your CFO has done this before, different companies, different faces. Same architecture. Why hasn't anyone stopped him? Daniel met her eyes. Because people like him don't break systems, he said. They use them. Serena closed the folder. What do you need from me? Your presence, Daniel said. In a room where truth makes people uncomfortable, she exhaled. I don't know how to stand there without power. Daniel shook his head. Good, he said. Then you'll finally be standing as yourself. In 48 hours, Serena would walk into the boardroom not as a leader, but as a target, and the man she trusted most would reveal a truth that tied this case to a death long buried. The boardroom no longer belonged to Serena Vaughn. She felt it the moment she stepped inside, how the air shifted, how conversation stalled mid-sentence, how eyes slid past her instead of meeting her gaze. The long glass table reflected her image back at her, smaller somehow, stripped of authority she'd once carried effortlessly. Daniel walked beside her, unhurried, carrying nothing but a thin leather folder. 12 board members sat waiting. Her CFO, Richard Hale, occupied his usual seat near the head of the table, posture relaxed, expression measured. If there was fear inside him, it didn't surface. Men like Richard had learned long ago how to wear calm like a shield. This meeting is private, Richard said smoothly. You're not authorized to be here. Serena didn't respond. Daniel did. I'm not here on her authority, he said. I'm here on behalf of the evidence. A murmur rippled through the room. The chairman cleared his throat. We'll allow 5 minutes. Daniel nodded as if 5 minutes were generous. He opened the folder and slid copies down the table. Over the last 9 years, he began, $46 million has been siphoned through layered shell structures tied to legacy accounts. The transactions were engineered to implicate one executive, Miss Vaughn. Richard smiled faintly. That's an accusation. No, Daniel replied. It's a pattern. He clicked a remote. The screen lit up with timelines, transaction maps, timestamps. Digital signature cloning occurred at 2:17 a.m. on October 3rd, Daniel continued. Using credentials registered to the CFO's private access terminal. Richard leaned back. Anyone could have used those credentials. True, Daniel said calmly, which is why context matters. Another slide appeared, email routing paths, offshore servers, encrypted exchanges. These same channels appear in 5 unrelated corporate fraud cases over the last decade, Daniel said. Different companies, same financial architecture. Serena felt the room shift. The chairman frowned. And what's your connection to these cases, Mr. Cross? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his jacket and placed a single photograph on the table. A woman, early 30s, confident eyes. Federal badge clipped to her jacket. My wife, Daniel said. Lena Cross, senior investigator. Serena's breath caught. She was building a case against a subsidiary called Hale Holdings, Daniel continued. 3 weeks before presenting her findings, she died in a single-car accident, brake failure, no witnesses. Richard's smile vanished. That's tragic, he said carefully, but irrelevant. Daniel's voice hardened for the first time. Hale Holdings was founded by you. Silence. One board member shifted uncomfortably. Another glanced at Richard. The shell structure used then, Daniel said, matches the one used to frame Serena now. Same jurisdictions, same delays. Same intent. Serena felt dizzy. This wasn't just betrayal, it was legacy. Richard stood. This is absurd. You're grieving, you're projecting. Daniel met his eyes. I waited 8 years for evidence, he said. Not revenge. Proof, he turned to Serena. They didn't come for you because you were careless, he said. They came because you stopped being manageable. Serena stepped forward. I'm requesting an immediate independent audit, she said, voice steady, and the suspension of Richard Hale's access pending investigation. You can't, Richard snapped. Your authority. My authority as CEO is suspended, Serena interrupted. Not my authority as a shareholder, gasps. My father made sure of that. The chairman exhaled slowly. We'll vote. 20 minutes later, the decision was announced. Audit approved, access suspended, investigation opened. It wasn't justice, but it was a crack. As they exited, Daniel stopped beside Serena. "This doesn't end cleanly," he said. "People like him don't fall quietly." Serena nodded. "I'm done being quiet." What Serena didn't know yet was that Richard Hale had already set his final move in motion, and it wouldn't target her career next. It would target her family. The warning came too late. Serena was halfway through packing a small overnight bag when her phone lit up, not with a call, but with a message that made her hands go cold. Unknown number. "You should tell Daniel Cross to stop digging." No signature, no threat spelled out. It didn't need one, she didn't reply. She never did when fear was the currency. Instead, she grabbed her coat and left the penthouse, choosing the service elevator without thinking. By the time she reached the street, the city felt different, closer, sharper, watchful. Daniel answered on the first ring. "They've noticed," she said. "I know," he replied. "Where are you?" "2 blocks from your place." "Keep walking. Don't look behind you." Her pulse spiked. "I think I'm being followed." "Then don't confirm it." She followed his instructions exactly, crossed streets at random, paused at a bakery window, stepped into a crowded convenience store, then exited through a second door. When she finally reached his block, Daniel was already outside, scanning the street like a man who'd learned survival the hard way. Inside, the townhouse lights were dim. Maya's bedroom door was closed. "She's asleep," Daniel said quietly. She didn't need to hear this. Serena handed him the phone. He read the message once, then again. "They're escalating," he said, "which means the audit scared them." "Richard?" "Yes. But not just him." Daniel moved to the kitchen, opening a drawer Serena hadn't noticed before. Inside were burner phones, cash, documents sealed in plastic. "You planned for this," Serena said. "I planned for the system to protect itself," he replied. "It always does." He pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were photographs, her daughter, walking across a school courtyard, getting into a car. Laughing with friends, images taken from angles that felt invasive, deliberate. Serena's knees nearly gave out. "They wouldn't," she whispered. "They already did," Daniel said. "This is leverage." Rage surged where fear had been. "They framed me," Serena said. "Now they're threatening my child." Daniel's voice dropped. "That's why we end this publicly, quickly." A soft sound came from the hallway. Maya stood there, rabbit tucked under her arm, eyes too alert for someone half asleep. "Are we in trouble?" she asked. Daniel crouched immediately. "No," Maya tilted her head. "You're lying." Daniel closed his eyes for a brief moment, then nodded. "Yes, but we're handling it." She looked at Serena. "Is it because of you?" Serena knelt. "It's because of people who don't like being exposed." Maya considered this, then said something that shattered Serena. "My mom used to say bad people hate the light." Daniel's throat tightened. "That's right," he said. "Go back to bed." When Maya disappeared, Daniel straightened, something hard settling behind his eyes. "They crossed a line," he said, "which means they're running out of time." "What's the plan?" Serena asked. "We release everything," Daniel said, "not just to the board, to regulators, journalists, independent prosecutors. They'll come for us." "They already are," Serena exhaled slowly. "Then I won't run," she said. "I won't hide. I won't negotiate." Daniel studied her. "This path costs you what little safety you have left." "I lost safety the moment I became inconvenient," he nodded once. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "we go public." Serena looked at the dark window, imagining her daughter miles away, unaware of how close danger had come. "Let them see us," she said. "All of us." By dawn, Serena's name would dominate every screen in the country, but this time, the story wouldn't be the one written for her. It would be the one that destroyed the people who thought she'd stay silent. By sunrise, silence was no longer an option. Daniel hadn't slept. Serena could tell by the way he moved, precise, efficient, as if exhaustion had sharpened him instead of slowing him down. Papers were stacked in neat rows across the kitchen table. Laptops glowed. Phones buzzed, one after another, each vibration a signal that the world was waking up to what they were about to unleash. At 6:43 a.m., Daniel hit send. Encrypted files went out to 3 federal offices. 2 investigative journalists, 1 independent prosecutor who had nothing left to lose. Serena watched the progress bars crawl forward, every second stretching tight as wire. "That's it?" she asked. "That's the point of no return," Daniel said. "From here on, the truth belongs to everyone." Her phone came alive almost immediately. Unknown numbers, missed calls, voicemails stacking up faster than she could listen to them. News alerts flashed across the screen like sparks. Breaking. CEO releases evidence challenging fraud allegations. Sources say CFO under federal scrutiny. Serena felt something inside her loosen, not relief, but inevitability. The lie had been loud, the truth was louder. At 8:10 a.m., a black SUV slowed outside the townhouse. Daniel noticed first. Stay back, he said, moving toward the window. Two men stepped out, plain clothes. Badges flashed briefly in the morning light. Federal, one called out. Mr. Cross, Miss Vaughn. Serena's heart raced, but Daniel exhaled. About time, he said, opening the door. They asked questions, careful ones, specific ones. Not the language of intimidation, but confirmation. You're aware, the agent said, that your evidence suggests obstruction, fraud, and potential conspiracy tied to multiple entities. Yes, Daniel replied. That's why I documented everything. And the threats? The second agent asked, eyes flicking to Serena. Serena handed over her phone. The agent's jaw tightened as he read the message. You did the right thing, he said quietly. By noon, it was everywhere. Screens in coffee shops, radios in taxis. Headlines rewriting themselves in real time. Serena's face appeared beside words like exoneration and manufactured evidence. Richard Hale's name followed close behind, no longer protected by titles or familiarity. But the victory felt fragile, because systems didn't collapse overnight. At 2:27 p.m., Daniel's phone rang. He listened without speaking, his expression hardening with each second. When he hung up, Serena knew before he spoke. He's gone, Daniel said. Hale, gone where? Doesn't matter. What matters is he's moving money, trying to disappear before warrants finalize. Fear surged again. So this isn't over. No, Daniel said. It's just shifted. Another call came in, this time from Maya's school. Daniel answered, his posture changing instantly. Yes, I understand. Thank you for calling. He hung up slowly. They moved her to a secure location, he said. Precautionary. Serena's chest tightened. This is my fault. Daniel looked at her sharply. No, he said. This is the cost of telling the truth in a system that profits from silence. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere in the city. Helicopters beat the air overhead. The world felt louder, faster, unforgiving. Serena stepped to the window, watching people move through their ordinary lives. They'll survive this, she said. People like him always do. Daniel joined her. Not this time, he said. This time there are witnesses, paper trails, patterns. And you? He didn't answer right away. I've been waiting 8 years, he said finally. I'm not stepping back now. Serena nodded, neither was she. That night, as the city burned with speculation and outrage, Richard Hale made a desperate choice. One that would force Serena and Daniel into a final confrontation neither of them could walk away from unchanged. Richard Hale resurfaced at 9:14 p.m., not with a statement, not with a lawyer, but with money. Daniel saw it first, an abnormal transfer flagged by an offshore compliance monitor he'd built years earlier, back when he'd learned the hard way that predators always made one last greedy mistake. He's liquidating, Daniel said, eyes locked on the screen. Fast, sloppy. Serena leaned over his shoulder. Where? An account in Malta, then Dubai, then... Daniel paused. Then back into the U.S., Serena frowned. Why would he come back? Because running forever isn't power, Daniel said. Control is. Another alert chimed. Daniel's jaw tightened. He's setting a narrative, he said. If he can't erase the evidence, he'll contaminate it. Within minutes, the media cycle shifted. Anonymous source claims CEO collusion with external consultant questions raised about motives behind evidence released. Serena stared at the screen. He's trying to drag you down with me. Daniel nodded. Classic misdirection. If everyone's dirty, no one is. A knock echoed at the door. Both of them froze. Daniel checked the security monitor, then relaxed slightly. It was the agents again, same two, less polite this time. We traced Hale's last transfer, one said. He's baiting you. Daniel didn't pretend otherwise. He wants a meeting, the agent continued. Off the record. No warrant yet? Serena laughed bitterly. Of course he does. Daniel turned to her. You don't go. I started this. You survived it, he said. That's enough. Serena met his gaze. No, she said. If he wants a witness, I'll be one. The agents exchanged looks. Then we do this clean, one said. Controlled location, surveillance, no improvising. The parking garage smelled like oil and desperation. Richard Hale stood alone near a black sedan, hands in his coat pockets, posture loose as if this were just another late-night negotiation. Serena, he said, smiling, you look tired. You framed me, she replied. He shrugged. I optimized outcomes. Daniel stepped into view. Richard's smile thinned. And you must be the ghost. Daniel didn't respond. I admired your wife, Richard continued casually. She was thorough, too thorough. That was enough. The agents moved in slightly, but Daniel raised a hand. Say it, Daniel said quietly. Say what you did. Richard's eyes flicked to Serena. You should have stayed predictable, he said. Your father understood balance. You wanted reform, so you destroyed me. I protected the system, Richard said, the one that made all of us rich. Daniel activated his recorder. Richard noticed too late. You killed an investigator, Daniel said. You stole for years, you framed an executive. Why? Richard smiled then, small, confident. Because I could, he said, and because no one ever stopped me. Sirens echoed above them. Richard's smile finally faltered. Agents stepped forward, cuffs flashing under fluorescent light. As they led him away, Richard looked back at Serena. This won't fix you, he said. You'll never get it all back. Serena didn't flinch. I don't want it back, she said. I want it finished. The doors slammed shut. Silence filled the garage. Daniel exhaled for the first time in hours. It's over, Serena said. Daniel shook his head slowly. No, he said. It's just moved to a courtroom. In the days that followed, as arrests were announced and reputations collapsed, Serena would face the hardest truth of all. Winning the fight didn't mean reclaiming her old life. It meant choosing what came next. The arrest didn't bring peace. It brought noise. Sirens became headlines. Headlines became opinions. Opinions hardened into judgments that refused to soften even when facts did. Serena learned quickly that public truth and personal closure were not the same thing. Richard Hale was charged within 48 hours. Fraud, obstruction, conspiracy. The word murder hovered in the margins, unspoken, unfinished, waiting for proof strong enough to survive a courtroom. Daniel spent his days preparing testimony. His nights were quieter now, but not calmer. Maya stayed with his sister, safe but distant, asking careful questions over video calls that Daniel answered with measured reassurance. Serena watched him carry that distance like weight he refused to put down. She had weight of her own. Her name was cleared, officially, publicly, repeatedly. It didn't matter. The board restored her temporary authority, but the room felt foreign when she returned. Smiles were careful. Apologies sounded rehearsed. People avoided her eyes as if survival itself had become suspicious. Power, she realized, didn't forgive instability. At 3:12 p.m. on a Thursday, Serena closed the door to her office and sat alone, staring at the skyline she'd once believed she controlled. She didn't miss it. That surprised her. Her phone buzzed. Daniel. I need to tell you something, he said. I already know, she replied softly. You're stepping back. There was a pause. Yes, for Maya. For me, he corrected. I spent 8 years chasing one ending. I forgot there were others. Serena nodded, even though he couldn't see her. I'm resigning, she said. Another pause, longer this time. You don't have to. I know, she replied. That's how I know it's right. The press conference was brief. No grand speeches. No blame. Serena Vaughn stepped down as CEO effective immediately. She would retain a minority stake but relinquish control. The company would survive. It always did. She walked away without looking back. That night she stood outside Daniel's townhouse again, this time without fear, without armor, without urgency. He opened the door and smiled faintly. You look lighter, he said. I am, she replied. They sat in the small kitchen, sharing takeout eaten from mismatched plates. No documents, no screens, just quiet. Do you regret it? Daniel asked. Losing everything? Serena smiled. I regret not losing it sooner. Daniel nodded. Justice doesn't restore, he said. It rearranges. Maya's room was dark. She'd be back next week. Serena stood by the doorway, imagining the life Daniel protected so fiercely. You were right, she said, about systems, about visibility. And you were right, he replied, about not running. They stood there, two people reshaped by the same fire, no longer burning. As trials approached and the world moved on, Serena would discover that rebuilding wasn't about replacing what was taken. It was about choosing what deserved to remain. The trial began without ceremony. No cameras inside the courtroom. No speeches worthy of television. Just wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, and the slow, methodical dismantling of a man who had believed himself untouchable. Serena attended the first day, and the last. Everything in between she left to Daniel. He testified with the same discipline he lived by. No dramatics, no vengeance, just evidence laid bare piece by piece until patterns became undeniable and denial became impossible. When Richard Hale was found guilty on multiple counts, the room didn't erupt. Justice rarely did. It arrived quietly, like an exhausted truth finally allowed to sit down. Serena watched from the back as Richard was led away. He didn't look at her. Men like him never did when the illusion finally collapsed. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. She didn't stop. Her life no longer required explanations. Weeks passed. The noise faded. Serena moved out of the penthouse. The new apartment was smaller, closer to the street, louder in the mornings. She learned the rhythm of her neighborhood, the sound of buses, the arguments of strangers, the ordinary chaos she'd once floated above. She liked it. Her daughter visited during spring break. They walked without agendas, ate meals without interruptions, talked about school friendships, fears. One night her daughter asked, "Are you happier now?" Serena thought carefully. "I'm more honest," she said, "and that feels like happiness." Daniel brought Maya home on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The girl ran into the townhouse like it had never changed, dropping her bag in the hallway, immediately narrating everything she'd missed. Serena watched from the kitchen doorway as Daniel listened, not half-listened, not multitasked. Just listened. That was his wealth. Later, when Maya went to sleep, Daniel joined Serena on the front steps. The city breathed around them. "I've been offered another case," he said. "High-profile, lucrative." "And?" "I said no," Serena smiled. "Good. I'm tired of fighting fires," he continued. "I want to build something fireproof." They sat in silence for a while. "You changed me," Daniel said eventually. "So did you," Serena replied. She launched the foundation quietly. No branding campaign, no gala, just resources, legal support, forensic analysis, protection for people who told the truth too early and paid for it. Daniel consulted when asked. Other times he stayed away. Boundaries, he called it. Serena called it respect. One evening, months later, Serena stood alone in her apartment looking at a framed photo on the wall. Not of the company, not of awards, but of a moment she almost missed, her daughter laughing, unguarded scene. She understood then what power had cost her, and what losing it had returned. The world would remember Serena Vaughn as a woman who survived scandal, but what mattered was what she became after survival was no longer the goal. The final chapters were still being written. Time didn't heal everything, it clarified. Serena stopped measuring her days by urgency. No alarms tied to market openings, no late-night calls disguised as emergencies. Her mornings began with light through thin curtains and the distant sound of the city waking without her permission. For the first time in decades, nothing needed her immediately. That absence felt strange, then necessary. The foundation grew slowly. Intentionally. No headlines. No boardrooms filled with men eager to attach their names to something righteous. Serena funded investigations quietly, protected whistleblowers anonymously, and declined interviews without apology. She learned that influence worked best when it didn't announce itself. Daniel visited less often now, not because distance had grown between them, but because balance had. Some evenings they shared dinner, others they didn't speak for weeks. Neither felt neglected, that too was new. Maya adjusted faster than either of them expected. She brought friends home, laughed loudly, argued freely. Safety, it turned out, wasn't silence, it was consistency. One afternoon, Serena accompanied them to a park near the river. She sat on a bench while Daniel and Maya argued over the rules of a game neither of them remembered correctly. "You're cheating," Maya accused. "I'm adapting," Daniel replied. Serena laughed out loud without restraint. She hadn't realized how long it had been since laughter came without calculation. A letter arrived in late autumn. No return address. No flourish. Inside was a single page. "I watched what you did when no one was applauding. That mattered. Thank you." No signature. Serena folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer she reserved for things that didn't need display. Daniel found her there later. "Still surprised?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Still grateful," he nodded. "Justice doesn't echo," he said. "It whispers." They never named what existed between them. They didn't need to. Some connections were strengthened by definition. Others survived because they refused it. On the first anniversary of the trial's verdict, Serena visited the courthouse alone. She stood on the steps briefly, watching people rush past with the certainty she once carried. Then she turned and walked away. That chapter didn't need revisiting. That evening she cooked dinner at Daniel's townhouse. Nothing elaborate. Pasta, vegetables, bread torn by hand. Maya helped mostly by tasting. "Are you staying?" the girl asked. "For dinner," Serena said. Maya grinned. "Good." Daniel watched the exchange quietly. After Maya went to bed, Serena washed dishes while Daniel dried. "You ever miss it?" he asked. "The power," she replied. He nodded. Serena considered the question. "No," she said finally. "I miss who I thought I was before I learned the truth, but I wouldn't trade who I am now to get her back." Daniel smiled, small, genuine. "That's growth," he said. She nodded. "Or surrender," she said. "Sometimes," he replied. "They're the same thing." In letting go of who she was forced to be, Serena finally made room for who she chose to become, and the final lesson would come when she least expected it. The call came on an ordinary Tuesday. That was how Serena knew it mattered. No urgency, no build-up. Just her phone vibrating gently against the kitchen counter while she sliced vegetables for dinner. She almost ignored it. "Miss Vaughn," the voice said when she answered. "My name doesn't matter. What does is that I'm alive because of you." Serena sat down slowly. The caller explained, carefully, haltingly. A mid-level finance officer at a manufacturing firm. She had noticed irregularities, raised questions, been warned to stop, then threatened, until someone from Serena's foundation intervened. Legal counsel, protection, time. "They told me I was overreacting," the woman said. "That it wasn't worth losing everything over. But when your people stepped in, they didn't ask me to be brave. They just made it possible. After the call ended, Serena didn't move for a long time. This was the outcome she'd never seen celebrated in boardrooms. No quarterly report could capture it. No headline would bother. But it mattered. That evening, she walked to Daniel's townhouse without announcing herself. The door was unlocked, as it often was now. Maya sat at the kitchen table, homework spread everywhere. "Hi," she said, barely looking up. "Hi," Serena replied. Daniel glanced up from the stove. "You're early." "I needed to be," she said. They ate together, talked about nothing important. Everything important. Later, while Maya showered upstairs, Serena told Daniel about the call. He listened the way he always did, without interrupting, without trying to reshape the story into something more efficient. When she finished, he nodded. "You didn't replace a system," he said. "You interrupted one." Serena leaned back in her chair. "I used to believe impact had to be visible," she said. "Measured. Recognized. And now I think the most meaningful changes happen where no one's watching." Daniel smiled. "That's how you know you're not doing it for power anymore." Maya came back downstairs in pajamas, hair damp, carrying a book. "Will you read?" she asked Serena. Serena hesitated, old reflexes stirring, then nodded. "Of course." They sat on the couch. Maya leaned in, heavy with trust. Serena read slowly, carefully, aware of the weight of that small request. Halfway through, Maya interrupted. "You know," she said, "my dad used to be angry all the time." Daniel stiffened slightly. "Not angry," Maya corrected. "Just tight, like he was holding something in." She glanced at Serena. "He's different now." Daniel exhaled. Serena closed the book gently. "So are you," she said to Maya. The girl smiled, satisfied, and returned upstairs. Later, Daniel stood at the window, watching the streetlights flicker on. "You ever think about what comes next?" he asked. Serena joined him. "Not in the old way," she said. "I don't need a 5-year plan anymore." "And in the new way," she considered. "I want to keep choosing the harder right over the easier familiar," she said. "Every day, even when no one notices." Daniel nodded. "That's a life," he said, "not a resume." Serena thought she had already learned her final lesson, but the last truth would arrive quietly in the form of a choice that would define not her legacy, but her peace. The choice arrived without drama. No deadline, no pressure, no consequences waiting loudly in the wings, just a quiet email sent on a Sunday morning while Serena sat at her kitchen table, sunlight pooling across unfinished coffee. "We'd like you to consider returning in an advisory role. Your experience could help guide long-term strategy." The company had recovered. New leadership, new messaging, careful distance from the past. They didn't want her power back, only her credibility. Once that offer would have felt like redemption. Now it felt like a test. Serena closed the laptop and let the silence sit. She thought about the woman she used to be, the one who measured worth by proximity to influence, by how often her absence was noticed.